Only a periphery remains of the island after the eruption. The steep cliffs of red and black lava remain today's mute witnesses of the bygone catastrophe, and on the spot where in all probability Poseidon's temple stood, a reminder to the present-day inhabitants of the island, there is a baby volcano in the center of the caldera, a small one, yet an active one, a rudimentary organ of fear, an atavism of ancient anxiety. And it happened that the river turned into blood, and all the waters that were in the river were turned into blood. This biblical line does not only recount the mystery of an Egyptian misfortune, quite likely it also contains a clue to the Aegean tragedy. And there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the fish died out in the river, and the river became putrid, and the Egyptians could not drink the water from the river, recorded on an Egyptian papyrus. Smote every herb in the field, and brake every tree of the field. The biblical author enumerates the disasters, and here yet is another one of the plagues from the book of Exodus. And Moses stretched his hand towards heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. Are these fantasies of the authors of the book, or a distorted truth about real events? Most likely the truth. And the blood throughout the whole Egyptian land, and the putrid water of the Nile? Yes, the flesh and blood of the eruption are the red ashes and sulfur. They are the ones that plagued Egypt. What about the darkness and the thunderstorms with hail? Indeed, the darkness, the thunderstorms with hail, the locusts, and the bees gone mad, these are all legitimate heirs of a volcano eruption. The eruption of the Krakatoa volcano in 1883 was heard for 4,000 kilometers away. But how powerful must have been the noise from the Etherian eruption, a much more intense one. Isn't that the voice with which the gods speak, especially during the time of the Exodus? We should ponder upon that, if the mishaps of Egypt, which lies at a distance of 1,000 kilometers from a volcano, are called the plagues, how should we term the misfortunes which befell the Minoan civilization, the home of the erupted volcano? A catastrophe? A real one indeed. However, in the middle of the 15th century before Christ, this blessed island was overcome with more than just a catastrophe. It was destruction of a land amid the sea. Atlantis? Quite possible. But the last mystery of the island is not limited to the mystery of the Atlanteans. Its last mystery is the mystery of the end. Why did the Minoan civilization perish? After all, there had been earthquakes, and fires had happened, and palaces were destroyed to the foundation. But the Cretans, eager for living, had erected anew, even more grandiose constructions on the ruins of the fallen ones, and new fleets had swept through the seas, and bulls were hunted for palace ceremonies, and frescoes were ornamented with blossoming nature. Why was it that particularly this time something has broken down in the collective soul of the island dwellers? Yes, there had been earthquakes and fires, black ashes and red sulfur. Yes, there had been floods and perishing of fleets. Yes, there had been the warlike Achaeans who had finally subdued the seas and the land of Crete. But still, they had not subdued the soul of the Cretans. It had still remained in possession of their mother, the Great Mother. However, something has disappeared after the catastrophe. The gracefulness, the refinement, and the lightness of the Minoan worship. And something else has appeared, a sense of heaviness, fullness, a somber conventionality of the early matriarchate, and something else, something viscid, sticky, and sweet. It whispered, "Everything will pass. Do not stir. Do not drive away sweet slumber. Do not waste energy on outward illusions. Send them on inward ones, more pliant and obedient ones, obedient to you." And remember, the entrance into this new world is not connected with vomiting and convulsions. It is smooth and pleasant because it is an opium. Here it is, the strongest ally of the aggressor, more forceful than volcanoes, tsunamis, and earthquakes. The creator of friends out of any material at hand. The flower of Morpheus and Persephone, of the god and goddess of sleep, of sweet sleep and of eternal sleep. The sleep of the will and of reason. It holds the clue of the mystery of the end. Here ends the great history of the people amid the seas, and simply history begins. The history of the island of Crete. Through its sacred lands, Dorians and Romans will pass, Venetians and Turks, Crusaders and Templars, Nazis and tourists. What kind of sacrifices will they render to the ancient gods, and what kind will they demand for themselves? Some of them will leave behind them cities and temples, theaters and bathhouses. Others will leave fortresses and births. Still others will leave behind minarets and markets. The brave will leave graves behind. The violent, after sowing suffering, will reap rebellion and death. As for the last of these, what will the tourists, followers of Taurus, leave behind on the island? We, ourselves.